So there are a lot of weird, creepy, or just downright disturbing Pokedex entries in the series, so I thought it'd be fun to take a look at some of the most notable ones. Beginning with Tinkaton, this cute little fairy type is actually quite a menace. As its Scarlet Dex entry states, this intelligent Pokemon has a very daring disposition. It knocks rocks into the sky with its hammer, aiming for flying Corviknight. Its Violet Dex entry then says, the hammer tops 220 pounds, yet it gets swung around easily by Tinkaton as it steals whatever it pleases and carries its plunder back to its home. So to unpack a little bit here, first Tinkaton knocks Corviknight out of the sky, rips its armor off its body, which probably kills Corviknight, and then it builds a hammer out of the armor so that it can use the hammer to go knock out more people and steal their stuff. This thing is a little kleptomaniac troll running around knocking people out and taking their valuables. Next up is Knacklestack. Its Scarlet Dex entry says, this Pokemon dry cures its prey by spraying salt all over them. The curing process steals away the water in the prey's body. Now just imagine that you're out minding your business one day, enjoying the summer weather, and out of nowhere, this little rock dude just comes up, starts covering you in salt, and now you're slowly being dry cured to death. And for our final entry, we have Brambleghast, whose Scarlet Dex entry says it will open the branches of its head to envelop its prey. Once it absorbs all the life energy it needs, it expels the prey and discards it. Paired with its Violet entry that reads, Brambleghast wanders around arid regions. On rare occasions, mass outbreaks of these Pokemon will bury an entire town. Now I don't know about y'all, but this is literally the plot of a horror movie. Haunted Tumbleweed buries a whole town and then slowly starts sucking the life force out of everybody, causing them to slowly become these like weird Brambleghast tumbleweed zombie things, and then when it's done with the town, they just all roll on over to the next town. Night of the Living Brambleghast, anybody? Today's lineup of weird and disturbing Pokedex entries has a roster of Pokemon that look cuddly and friendly, but in reality will crush every bone in your body, melt your face off, and then slurp up the mess as an afternoon snack. Beginning with Beware, this oversized living teddy bear has a habit of crushing people's spines. As its Moon Dex entry states, this Pokemon has the habit of hugging its companions. Many trainers have left this world after their spines were squashed by its hug. And to make matters even worse, its form of intimidation comes in the form of a friendly wave. As its Ultra Sun Dex entry states, it waves its hands wildly in intimidation and warning. Life is over for anyone who doesn't run away as fast as possible. And hell, even if you catch and befriend a Beware, your life is still in danger, since its Sword Dex entry says, once it accepts you as a friend, it tries to show its affection with a hug. Letting it do that is dangerous. It could easily shatter your bones. So basically what I'm getting out of this is do not go anywhere near Beware. Just stamp it with a big old nope sign and just stay the hell out of its way. Next up we have Sliggoo coming in with some potentially minor body horror. Its Moon Dex entry says, this Pokemon's mucus can dissolve anything. Toothless, it sprays mucus on its prey. Once they're nicely dissolved, it slurps them up. Now if that isn't weird and disturbing enough for you, its Sun Dex entry goes on to state, it has trouble drawing a line between friends and food. It will calmly try to melt and eat even those it gets along well with. So again, we have another Pokemon that doesn't matter if you're friends or not with it, because it's probably going to leave you dead or horribly maimed and disfigured. Our final Dex entry, Gorbis, isn't as dangerous to humans, but it made the list for its grotesque feeding habits. Its Sapphire Dex entry says, although Gorbis is the very picture of elegance and beauty while swimming, it is also very cruel. When it spots prey, this Pokemon inserts its thin mouth into the prey's body and drains the prey of its bodily fluids. Its Emerald Dex then says, a Gorbis siphons the bodily fluids of a prey through its thin, tubular mouth. Its light pink body color turns vivid when it finishes feeding. And then to paint an even more vivid picture in your mind, its Ultra Moon Dex entry says, it sucks the bodily fluid out of its prey. The leftover meat sinks to the floor where it becomes food for other Pokemon. And then finally, its Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl entries say, it lives at the bottom of the sea. In the springtime, its pink body turns more vivid for some reason. And if you think back to the Emerald Dex entry that we just read like 5 seconds ago, we know that its body turns vivid pink after it feeds. So in the springtime, when their bodies are all turning vivid pink, it's probably because they all just went on a massive feeding frenzy, and there's probably hundreds, maybe thousands of just empty husks of fish Pokemon slowly floating to the bottom of the ocean to be fed on by whatever creepy crawlies live at the bottom of the ocean in the Pokemon world. Today's batch of weird and disturbing Pokedex entries are definitely some of the more disturbing ones out there. Beginning with Palossand, its Sword Dex entry says, Palossand is known as the beach nightmare. It pulls prey down into the sand by controlling the sand itself, and then it sucks out their soul. And then its Moon Dex entry says, buried beneath the castle are masses of dried up bones from those whose vitality it has drained. Now that's already haunting enough as it is, but it gets worse because in Scarlet and Violet, its dex entries read, the terrifying Palossand drags smaller Pokemon into its sandy body. Once its victims are trapped, it drains them of their vitality whenever it pleases. From the hollows in its arms, it fires the bones of its victims, which are all dried up after being drained of their vitality. So not only does Palossand suck you in like some quicksand, but then it traps you there and slowly sucks away your life force as it pleases, and then when you die, it uses your body as ammunition to shoot your dried up bones. That is nightmare fuel if I've ever heard it. Now I want y'all to buckle up for this next one, because this Pokemon is an utter menace to society. Hatterene has got to be the most unassumingly violent Pokemon out of all 1008. Its Sword Dex entry reads, it emits psychic power strong enough to cause headaches as a deterrent to the approach of others. And if headaches aren't bad enough, its Shield Dex says, if you're too loud around it, you risk being torn apart by the claws on its tentacles. This Pokemon is also known as the Forest Witch.
But wait! There's more!
Hatterene's Gigantamax Dex entries read, this Pokemon can read the emotions of creatures over 30 miles away. The minute it senses hostility, it goes on the attack. Beams like lightning shoot down from its tentacles. It's known to some as the Raging Goddess. Now I don't know what kind of tentacle porn femdom mashup Game Freak came up with for this one, but Hatterene's out here wiping out whole towns just because one person had a bad day. And now finally, we get some new, but on brand, chilling information for Hatterene in Violet with beware of forests that show no signs of living creatures within. You may have wandered into Hatterene's territory. So not only are humans at risk of being murdered by Hatterene, but so are other Pokemon, as it either kills everything in its forest, or it just scares them all away because nobody wants to be near this thing, because when it snaps, it's finna be a bloodbath. Alright folks, dust off your Pokedexes because it's time for some weird and disturbing Pokedex entries. And today's entries come from a couple of very unassuming bug-type Pokemon with some very disturbing eating habits. First on the list is Karrablast. Now, you'd think that Karrablast and Shelmet have a pretty positive symbiotic relationship, since the only way to evolve these two Pokemon are to trade them for each other, which is explained in its Black Dex entry that says, these mysterious Pokemon evolve when they receive electrical stimulation while they're in the same place as a Shelmet. However, in its White Pokedex entry, it says, when they feel threatened, they spit an acidic liquid to drive away attackers. This Pokemon targets Shelmet. So it would appear that in the wild, Karrablast and Shelmet do not have the best of relationships with each other. Then in Black 2 and White 2, we learn even more about their relationship in Karrablast's Dex entry that says, for some reason they evolve when they receive electrical energy while they are attacking Shelmet. But it's not into Pokemon Shield where we get the true disturbing information about Karrablast and Shelmet's relationship, when in its Shield Dex entry it says, it spits a liquid from its mouth to melt through Shelmet's shell. Karrablast doesn't eat the shell, it eats only the contents. So basically, what I'm taking away from this is that Karrablast goes around melting Shelmets just enough to get their insides nice and gooey and exposed, and then probably just slurps it all up like a nice little buggy Shelmet slush. Would you like tapioca with that? And now for our second entry of the day, we have Galvantula. Now, if you have arachnophobia, Galvantula is probably going to make that 10 times worse, with its Sword Dex entry that says it launches electrified fur from its abdomen as its means of attack. Opponents hit by the fur could be in for 3 full days and nights of paralysis. And if you thought 3 days of full paralysis by a giant spider the size of a man wasn't bad enough, in its White Pokedex entry, we learn that they employ an electrically charged web to trap their prey. While it's immobilized by shock, they leisurely consume it. Now, I don't know about y'all, but there is nothing that sounds worse than literally being shocked into paralysis by a giant spider and then having it slowly eat you, probably painfully, since spiders tend to inject their prey with venom that melts their insides just like Karrablast and then just slurps it up. So clearly we have two bug Pokemon that just enjoy a little bit of meat slushy. Alright folks, so the Epilogue Quest for the Indigo Disc DLC just dropped, and with it we got a new, slightly concerning Pokemon that also happens to be this generation's mythical. So strap in for another installment of disturbing Pokedex entries. Petron, the new mythical of Gen 9, is the gatekeep gaslight girl boss queen of the game. Now before even getting into the Dex entries, we have its classification as the subjugation Pokemon, which may be one of the most aggressive classifications of the series. Now its Scarlet Dex entry reads, it feeds others toxic mochi that draws out desires and capabilities. Those who eat the mochi fall under Petron's control, chained to its will. Right off the bat, it's giving some serious Hellraiser vibes.
We have such sights to show you.
And its Violet Dex entry says its peach-shaped shell serves as storage for a potent poison. It makes poisonous mochi and serves them to people and Pokemon. So basically, this Pokemon shows up, force feeds you a bunch of poison, and then tells you what to do. Now, if that isn't major Dommy Mommy energy right there, then I don't know what is. Y'all need to hide your wife, hide your kids, and hide your booty.